Well, we have somebody with us today that I think will really provoke you to think, and that's what it's all about. And he has a great book out called The Wonder of the Universe, Hints of God in Our Fine-Tuned World. Karl Giberson's with us today, and let me encourage you, there's a picture of the book up on the screen. Check it out. It's put out by IVP Books, and you can probably check it out at Evangel, Barnes & Noble, online at Amazon.com as well. Karl Giberson is an internationally known scholar and popular speaker, writer, and boy, he does all kinds of things, and he's concerned about getting us a better handle on what could be, when we don't want it to be, between God and science. And so, Karl, what a delight to have you. Where are we talking to you from? Where are we Skyping you in from?
Hi, I'm in Hingham on the South Shore of Boston.
Hey, nice to see you. Thanks for being with us today. What motivated you to go down this road, this book here?
Well, this is my seventh book on science and religion, and in this book I'm kind of returning to my roots, which were in physics. I've spent a lot of time talking about Darwin and biological evolution, but I really wanted to share with readers some of the grandeur that we see in the physical universe, and I hope that The Wonder of the Universe will help Christians to be able to see science as something which is kind of marvelously friendly to their faith and not threatening.
Why do you think it is threatening? Why do you think there is a separation there? Because I know there are great institutions trying to help bridge the gap like you are, but why do you think believers have a tendency to shy away from science?
Well, a lot of scientific advances have come at times in history when religious people had very different ideas, and sometimes it's easy to get your religious faith kind of entangled in the worldview of your generation. And the most famous example is Galileo. I mean, people at the time of Galileo they really felt like somehow the Earth needed to be at the center and needed to be the biggest thing in the universe. And you know, Galileo and Newton come along and say, well, actually, this isn't the case. And so that was kind of unsettling. And so there's always this sort of sense that that religion is confronting new ideas from science, and these new ideas sometimes force changes. But the changes, I think, are often constructive and positive and not negative. But I think because of some of these celebrated confrontations in the past, like Galileo and Darwin, we kind of tend to think, oh no, here's yet another scientific idea that somehow will threaten my faith. And much of science really is not that way at all. So
give us some examples on how science affirms a creator, because did you see the movie Expelled, and what did you think of that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a fan of the approach taken to science in Expel. I mean, there are a few good points made there, but the approach in Expelled is the larger intelligent design approach, which I find tends to create what I would call sort of micro arguments for God based on things that we don't understand in nature. We kind of line up all the phenomena in nature, and we kind of pick the few that seem too complicated to explain with contemporary science, and we say, see, we need God to do this. We can't explain blood clotting or the immune system, so we invoke God to do that. But then we let sort of science explain the rest, and I don't like that sort of patchwork approach where a lot of phenomena is understood in a secular way, and then a small set of phenomena is understood in a more religious way. I like to think of science as a consistent grand tapestry of order, of explanation, and that as we put together that grand tapestry, we can see the wondrous beauty of the Creator sort of shining through. And that's what I tried to do in The Wonder of the Universe, is show that the grand picture is something which is faith affirming. We don't have to sort of suppose that God's hiding behind this or that little mystery, but God is rather on display in the grandeur of the whole show.
Where do you think academia is on this in your approach?
Well, academia really is all over the map. I think the majority of academia isn't involved in this discussion. I mean, most science is way too specialized to get involved in sort of big questions about what it all means. And that sort of science is pretty much off the radar. People don't pay much attention to it. But there are a few very prominent and outspoken atheists who are eager to try to promote science as an alternative to belief in God, and they get a lot of press. So I think there's a perception out there that that science somehow is constantly threatening faith, but that's really just a propaganda argument being made by some secularists who kind of want religion to go away. It's not really the view that's held by most people. What are some of the questions that you get, Karl, from skeptics who just kind of not tracking with you? Well, the skeptics, of course, they jump immediately to sort of central theological ideas like the virgin birth and the resurrection and so on, which are really of a quite different character than what I focus my attention on. I mean, science doesn't have much to say about those sort of one-time miracles and how we should understand those, but where I try to keep the conversation, but often in a debate, whether it's online or in an interview like this, people don't want to kind of address the question of the transcendent mystery of the universe, and I think that's one of the things that is crystal clear to anybody who's not approaching this as a vehicle for propaganda. If you're just looking at science and you're saying, like, what do we see when we look really closely at science? We see a grandeur, something that's transcendent. We see a rational structure to the universe that is breathtaking in its beauty and simplicity, and the buzz recently about the Higgs boson. Like, that's yet another piece of this picture. It just kind of rounds out the sense that behind all of the observations that we make of the universe, whether it be the observation of a star at night or the interior of a nucleus in an accelerator, that all those observations have behind them this marvelous rational order. And that's very faith-affirming, and that's long been a part of the Christian tradition, to believe that there's a kind of a logos there, a pattern, a rational structure behind everything. Beautifully said, because sometimes we need to step back and look at it exactly the way you are portraying this and having us look at it, because you can't look at this kind of grandeur and this order and just dismiss it and call it chance. Yes, I think that's very much a sort of faith position to take, to somehow look at the trajectory of the universe from the Big Bang, those early moments that the discovery of the Higgs boson are helping us to understand a little bit better, all the way through the formation of stars and galaxies and planets and solar system and life and so on. I mean, that long trajectory just doesn't look like a 15 billion year tale told by an idiot. So how do you look at it, maybe on a closer scale, such things as the book of Genesis and the creation in 7 days, those kinds of things? You probably are well aware of all of the debates from young Earth to old Earth. And I just got through doing a show of the comparison of Mount St. Helens and the Grand Canyon on some of the dating of the heating of the Earth and the various layers and things like that. I thought, wow, how can we avoid this kind of evidence? Well, I think that the evidence that the Earth is billions of years old and the universe is even older is quite compelling, and I think we're in the sort of ballpark now where we can say that the age of the Earth is just about as certain as the fact that it moves. So I think we have to kind of move past trying to come up with an alternative science that lets us keep a young Earth, something that's 10,000 years old. And there are always these little little small mysteries and so on in the conventional scientific picture, but there's a consensus in the scientific community that stretches across all the disciplines and draws on insights from physics and biology and geology and chemistry and astrophysics, and all of that converges on the universe originating 13 to 14 billion years ago. So I think this is one of the places where we have to sort of be prepared to look at different ways to read Genesis, and to kind of acknowledge that Genesis was written at a certain time and within the context of a certain worldview, and we have a different science now, so we have to read it differently.
Do you think in academia they're beginning to agree that there's an order to this, that it just didn't happen by a big bang or a chance, but there is some kind of overlaying majestic order to all of this?
Well, the idea that it's all just a big accident, that's all due to chance, is kind of a caricature of the secular scientific picture that's kind of offered up by religious believers who don't like that picture. Like they try to kind of emphasize aspects of it that will make people say, "Oh, I don't believe that." I wouldn't say that there's really ever been a time when the consensus view among rank and file scientists is that the whole thing is one gigantic, big, random accident. Certainly, there is a place for randomness. There are odd events that occur and so on that look sort of random, but there isn't any. There's no question that there are mathematical laws that are rigorously understood, that are deep and universal, that they work all the time everywhere in the universe. And we look at the light coming from a star that left that star when Captain Cook was on his voyage and hits the Earth now, and like we see the physics inside that star, and it's exactly the same as the physics inside our sun, and so on. I mean, this grand uniformity of nature is something that all scientists accept. Now, scientists are not all drawn to conclude that therefore there must be a God behind it all, but most scientists that are not in the propaganda game will say that there's something transcendent and mysterious going on here. I mean, Einstein himself, who didn't believe in a personal God, but I mean, he was famous for saying the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is this comprehensibility. I mean, this amazing rational character. I mean, that's widely shared in the scientific community.
The book is entitled The Wonder of the Universe, Hints of God in Our Fine-Tuned World by Karl Giberson, and put out by IVP Books. You may want to check that out online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or at Evangel. Karl, thank you. Fascinating discussion, and thank you for your work. And I think it's a wonderful thing for us to take a look at, as you're saying, the grand picture of the whole thing, because there's certainly an order to it all.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show.